Hey guys, welcome to my channel. So I finally did it. I created my first desktop application CSI app. It took me 10 days, but I worked hard because I had no idea what Svelte or Tori. And this is the first time I was doing these things, and I did it both in just one project. And I had no experience with Rust too. But I was so depressed at the beginning. I'm like, I can't do it. But I was like, okay, let's just create a CLI client and just get over with it. But then I decided no matter what, I am going to create my own desktop application, because the beauty of desktop app is that, for example, if I try to grab like dark from the settings, and you can see theme is dark. Now let's just change it to light. And now if you try to grab dark, there's no dark. But if you try to grab light, you can see that theme is changed to light basically. So you can do operations in your file system. So you can get OS information, you can do reboot, you can run some shell script, clipboard operation. There are so many cool things you can make. And you can use something like Svelte in front end or React. But React is bloat, it's bad, it's horrible. Svelte is 10 times better. And this is not it. Let me show you some more creative stuff you can do by learning these things. Okay. So first of all, I had to wrote zero Rust code. Now before you, okay, there are some people who might say this is bloat itself because this is a browser. Maybe it's not Chromium, but it is WebKit engine. I just want to show you the build size. Okay. So it is just 5 MB build size for Windows. I use my friend's computer to build it in Windows, and same I did for Apple, MacBook. And since I design it in a way, it almost feels like native. See, this is cross-platform, okay? So if you want me to make things in GTK, well, I might make it, but again, it's not cross-platform. So if you want to just provide some solution for some people, to just some people, okay, there are some cases where you can do stuff like this, like using, web frameworks in order to create desktop app. I am not a big fan of it, but I enjoyed it. Okay, I am happy doing something like this. So no comments on this. So it is making some calls. Like if I try to get magnet, it is making some API call, but it is not using JavaScript fetch function. It is using Rust. But I wrote 0 lines of code in Rust. And the reason is that Tori itself provides so many cool plugins which you can use. You can get OS information. You can create your own NeoFetch. So you can display the information in the application using HTML, CSS. And Svelte is super easy to learn. Like you don't have to use vanilla HTML, CSS. And Svelte is super lightweight. It is almost like vanilla HTML, CSS. Sometimes it's even better. Okay. So you can run a shells command. You don't have to write any, Rust code. You can just import in TypeScript and run it. It is going to use Rust in the backend anyway. So I use these plugins. I use SQL. So, okay, when I had no idea about plugins, I wrote some Rust code, and then I realized like there is no point of writing my own Rust functions. I can just use this plugin. So if I go to local share, there is this database which I download. So I'm not making API calls in order to fetch these films information. Okay. I'm having all the database right here, like public.db. So when I start the application, it just downloads. If there is any change in the database in server, it just download the entire server. That's how it is working. And I am in love with this thing, this model. So because this is a desktop app, it's not cool to have so many API calls. Okay. So I wrote 0 lines of Rust code, and I managed to do things by using Rust with these, Tori plugins. And this is, if you understand the kind of things you can do, like file system, HTTP calls, it is bizarre. It is beautiful. Like it's 10 times better than Electron, because this actually feels like app. It's not like browser. And it is so lightweight that you can actually feel like this is app. And think about all the cool stuff you can do. So I learned about this framework called Pixie.js. It is kind of like 3JS. So 3JS is like, it is 3D rendering. I really like this example. Let me just show you so you understand. So it used browser in order to make 3D renders by using some WebGL graphic library. So it used GPU in order to render it. So Pixie.js is similar, but for 2D. So you can do a lot of cool stuff with Pixie.js. Like people create games in Pixie.js by loading assets and using JavaScript. So I'm not getting lost in JavaScript world. I'm just trying to give you one idea. Okay. So I also did use Pixie.js in order to create some things. So I created this Navi OS. So let me show you what I did. Not not something huge. It's just a POC. Like I'm planning a project, and this is just a POC which I built. So you see this. Now you might think this is a website with image and some text here and there using CSS animation, but that's not the case. It is using WebGL and it is using GPU. It is basically kind of like game engine library in your browser. Okay. But I have this, okay, this is not HTML DOM button. So this is not DOM. This is a canvas. Okay. If I click on click me, you can see that I have this JavaScript calls happening. Okay. So now what I can do is I can use Pixie.js in order to create a UI like this, because I always wanted to create something like Navi OS for myself. Okay. So it's a fun little project I've always wanted to do. So if you see something like Navi OS in CL experiment lane, and you will see some goofy UI. And if you focus on this UI, you will realize that it has some background image. It has some text here and there. So for example, this scene, it have a background image, some wallpaper, it have some text, some animation going on, and then some, console open up and some text floating. Okay. And it have a filter, like some CRT filter. Now with Pixie.js, you can actually do this. Okay. So Pixie.js filters, and there is this library Pixie filters. It have like basic filter examples. I'm pretty sure it has examples somewhere. I need to go back and examples. Okay, so it has lots of cool filters, including CRT. CRT. So if I enable it, you can see the CRT filter. Okay. So now this is using canvas. Okay. It is not HTML elemented. This is not DOM. Okay. So what I did is I used Svelte to import and export, like mount and mount some component. It's kind of like React. So if you know React, you can basically have components architecture. So here, for example, I have layers. So in the background, I have one layer, which is nothing but just some background image, which I can change with a variable. And then there is this another layer, which is some text floating. And then there is this another layer where we have these animation, like this circle animation. And then I have another layer with the image on top of it. And there was one another UI layer. Okay. And you can mount, unmount, change these layers based on the configuration or randomly by using something like Svelte. Okay. So by combining Pixie.js and Tori and Svelte, and there are even libraries like Pixie Svelte. So what you can do is basically this is not my idea. Some people actually already had this idea and they actually build a lot of libraries in order to make this thing simple. So people are using React plus Pixie in order to create games. But my idea is that I can actually create something like a lane OS, and I can do things in my operating system in real time, or use something like LLM in order to decide what script to run. So let me give you some idea. Okay. So if I have a JSON, I don't even need a JSON. There is this library LangChain, and what it does, it allows you to execute some tool based on execute tools based on LLM output. So you can attach some tools like, okay, this is my Google Drive. Okay, that's the standard example, but you can attach some shell script. You can tell like how to use this shell script in order to find files in my computer, or do something like converting image from JPG to PNG, or start the recording of the screen. You can attach these tools and tell it about LLM, and it can execute, and then you can create a really nice UI in Pixie. And since as I showed you before, let me just show you again. In Pixie.js, you can get input like text input. There is this library, Pixie text input. And this is so cool. Like the kind of things you can do with such power. Like after learning, you feel so powerful because now you can do more stuff. So you can see, you can enter text and you can use JavaScript in order to get this text. So then you can make API calls, and you can even have like assets where you can click. So it's kind of like a game, but it is a modern UI. It's like how I build with, that lane thing by using Pixie.js. So that's the whole thing. Like it's not okay, some people might say you should create something in GTK or Qt and not something like not Electron, but Tori or Svelte or JavaScript front end. But you can use something like Pixie.js and then kind of like a game which is doing things in your computer, or more like some interactive waifu thing, or something more a assistant like thing which always comes here, or some Enkai front end where some anime girl or animation is showing you some Enkai text. There are so many things I can think of, but I can't discuss right now. But I am enjoying all this learning and the kind of things which I can do with these new technologies, and I feel good about it. Okay, so that's my video. And if you learn Svelte is super lightweight, fast. If you learn Tori, you can actually instantly turn your Svelte skills into the desktop application skills. And if you learn like Pixie.js, you can even go further and create interactive UI. So that's my video. Thanks for watching, and I'll give you more updates later.